Yes, sir. Good evening, sir. Please be on mute,
Professor
sir.
Anil Kumar, sir. Sir.
Yes, sir. Please
No,
be on
sir.
mute. Sir, please be on
So,
mute, sir.
so mute.
Yeah, please mute, sir.
Okay, okay, sir. So, English, we can start the program.
Sure, sir. Um, s- sir, I
Sanjesh, show
request.
your face. Fine.
Am I audible, sir?
Audible
Am
and
I
visible both.
visible? Yeah, thank you, sir.
Everybody has joined?
Yes, sir. Yeah, sir, I
Yes, yes.
request Umakant Patil, sir, to be on mute, sir. It's creating some disturbance. Umakant Patil, sir. Sir, please be on mute, sir. Umakant Patil, sir.
Good evening, Abhinav. Yes, yes.
Good evening,
Be on
sir. How
mute,
are
sir.
you?
Hi, how are you?
Hi.
How is Delhi?
Yeah, thank you.
Quite all right, sir. Namaskar, Alok sir.
Sir, shall we start?
I stopped working on the document some time ago. Now Avinash sir is working on it.
We'll start after this meeting.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Yes, yes.
Yes, sir.
Sanjesh, please, you can say.
Yes, thank you, sir. So, Gogiwa Thiong'o has spoken a beautiful words on the role of a writer. I would like to begin with those words. Quote unquote, the writer cannot be a mere storyteller. He must be a teacher, a convener of values and ideas. With these powerful words of Thiong'o, I would like to say a very warm and solemn evening to everyone gathered here. As we know, Dharwad, which was established in Dharwad in 2016, it's a literary and cultural forum committed to the preservation and promotion of literature, language, art, and culture. It's first of its kind. To be specific, very specific, it's first of its kind to organize an online condolence meet. On behalf of Dharwad Kate, we welcome you all to this virtual memorial meet organized in loving memory of one of the most powerful voices in post colonial literature and African thought, none other than Ngugi wa Thiong'o. Today, we are united not just by our respect for his literary genius, but also by our deep admiration for his life's commitment to decolonization, linguistic justice, and human dignity. I'd like to give a brief intro to Gogiwa Thiong'o. Gogiwa Thiong'o, who was born on 5th Jan 1938 in Kenya colony of British Empire, was not merely known for his writings but for his revolutionary thoughts as well. And he was a revolution. He was a relentless activist and a cultural warrior, I would say. And his decision to write in his native Gikyo marked it's a milestone, we would say. And his political imprisonment that we know, and his lifelong advocacy for African languages in education and literature marked him a fearless crusader for freedom, we would say. Not just this, through his novels like A Grain of Wheat, Petals of Blood, Decolonizing the Mind, and Devil and the Cross, he challenged imperial narratives and created a powerful space for African voices. And today, respected scholars and all the audiences, today, as we remember him, we also celebrate the spirit of resistance and renewal that he stood for. And we would say this memorial meet is an opportunity for all of us scholars, teachers, students, and admirers of literature to reflect on the life and works of Ngugi wa Thiong'o. So we gather not just to mourn his passing alone, but to honor the legacy that he continues to inspire generations across continents. So, at the outside, let me say to give a brief overview of today's evening session. We'll begin with tributes from eminent scholars who have studied and taught Gugiwa Thiong'o throughout their, in their academic life. And following this, we'll have an open floor where participants are welcome to share short reflections and experiences. And followed by this, we'll have where the evening will be concluded with a moment of silence and a formal vote of thanks. With this, uh, we invite you all to stay with us through this journey of remembrance and reflection. And so I would say thank you for joining us. And now let us begin this tribute by inviting our first speaker, Professor Alok Kumar from Madhya Pradesh, who will offer an opening remarks on Gogua Thiong'o. Sir?
Uh, am I audible, sir?
Yes, sir.
There seems to be a little problem with the video, I believe, but then uh, it goes a static. Anyway, uh, this is to this is a very solemn moment, so I won't be very profuse in my thanks, but then I must be thanking the organizers of this program, the forum, I would say, for inviting me to this. Uh, There is another reason why I should be doubly thankful. When the Professor Baswaraj when he talked to me about this program, uh, it suddenly came to my mind, that there is providence behind everything. And if I'm being invited, uh, there's a special reason for it. In the early 90s, when I uh, joined the University of Allahabad as a research scholar, even Baswaraj would not be knowing that because I haven't talked to him about this. I worked on African writers for my PhD. That was the post-colonial consciousness in Achibi, Doinka, and Ngugi. Well, the early 90s, that was the time when even the books on Nigerian writers and Kenyan writers were not available in India. And so I had to go all the way to the Nigerian embassy to get my books on Achibi. I got the books. Then I went to the Kenyan embassy for the books on Ngugi. But Daniel Arap Moi, the dictator, I would say, of Kenya from 1978 to 2002, I mean, that was a pretty long period. He was the undisputed king of Kenya, I would say. He was there and he was on no good terms with Ngugi. So the Kenyan embassy refused to help me with books. But the Nigerian embassy, surprisingly, came forward to help me, and it got the books even on Ngugi. So I got my books, and of course, rest is history. I was important PhD. But then Ngugi has been with me since then because he was one of the writers for my PhD thesis. Now, paying tribute to Ngugi, what can be said? I mean, the thing is, his relevance to our times, that is what surprises me. And when you have men of stature, when you have big minds, when you have big people, that is the best thing about them, that they are always relevant. And as times change, as we move into neoliberal times, into advanced capitalism, Mugi becomes all the more relevant to our times. Now, that was the time, you see, already in 1986, decolonizing the mind had come. And, but it had not yet become the part of Indian universities' syllabi. And of course, post colonialism was catching up in India. That was the time, the turn of the 90s. Uh, my thesis at University of Allahabad was one of the first of its kind in post colonial writing. Now, the thing is, if we look at Ngugi's contribution to the whole theory of decolonization, decolonizing the mind, and even the later papers from other people in India, other Hindi scholars like Namvar Singh writing about decolonizing the Indian mind, he was, of course, talking about decolonizing the colonial mind. So that is where the importance of Ngugi comes in. And right from then, the thing is, when we remember Ngugi, we remember the pains of exile, because Ngugi was a perennial exile. And only in 2002, when Daniel Arap Moi was no more the president of Kenya, did he return back to Kenya. He came back to Kenya. And what happens? Within 3 days, his house is vandalized, his wife is assaulted before his eyes. And then, I mean, this is what the country has to give you back. That is where the problem is. And that is why he symbolizes. He is, a quintessential post-colonial writer for us. For the simple reason that you are an exile everywhere. Your own country doesn't accept you. It doesn't accept the views that you are giving. And they are your own people after independence. They don't want you. In 1968, he came up with a proposal of demolishing or abolishing, not demolishing, actually, abolishing the English departments when he was already at the University of Nairobi. So within 1 year, he came up with a proposal, that the English departments should be shut down. What are they doing in a post-colonial country? Now, I have got my bread and butter from the Department of English in one of the Indian universities. So I don't know where I stand uh, with that proposal. But then, look at the irony of the whole situation. That is the post-colonial writer, the situation of the post-colonial writer. That Makerere University, from where he got his degree, that was under the University of London. And he got the degree of University of London. His BA degree was from there. And then but he continued. Okay. University of California, Irving, Distinguished Professor of English and Comparative Literature. New York University, 1992. Yale University between 1989 to 1992. And this journey continues. So a person who had proposed, that the English departments should be shut down in Kenya, he, throughout his career, is in exile and he is in the English departments of the American universities. So the American universities are hosting him and they're telling him, okay, your views are welcome. You're talking about the Britishers, you're talking about the white people who had colonized you, and you're talking against them. Yet I welcome you, we welcome you. But your own country doesn't welcome you. Look at that. So that is where we are all, whenever you are saying something which is against the establishment, okay, which is against the powers that be, that is what post-colonialism has all been. And that's why he is a post-colonial giant. And not only that, I mean, if you look at the petals of blood, okay, the petals of blood, you have the Kenyan elite, you have capitalism, you have corruption, you have loss of village land. All these themes, they resonate with us even today. And not even today, more today than ever. And the sale of land to the corporate, the crisis of education, the cynicism that marks that crisis. All that is a part of our legacy, dependent India. That is where, and look at the Devil on the Cross, 1980. What do we have there? There's a committee which identifies the 7 cleverest criminals and looters in the town of Ilmarok. Now that sounds interesting. So identifying them, and awarding them in a way. And there is an organization of modern theft and robbery in that book. Okay, The Devil and the Cross. But I won't take long because you see, we are paying tribute to Ngugi, and it's not a time when I should be talking about too much about his books. But then one thing I cannot go without talking, that is his publication in 2012 of the book Globalactics, Theory and Politics of Knowing. Now, the book Globalactics actually, where he talks about his entire journey and why he did what he did. There also, you see, he talks about the poverty of theory, first of all. And when we are reading his earlier book, 1986, book, about decolonizing the mind, that is what surprises us. That is what impresses us, rather, that he is theoretical without using the jargon of theory. He is actually laying down the foundations of a theory without being theoretical, too theoretical. And that's what he says. I'll just from what he says in Globalactics. He says the tendency in theory today is to substitute density of words for that of thought. That is, the thought is shallow, but the words are dense, a kind of modern scholasticism. Instead of how many angels can stand on the head of a pin, we have how many words can stand on a line of thought. Now, that is Ngugi, the essential Ngugi, uh, the essence of Ngugi, how he talks and how he makes things intelligible to us without being dense or without being very complex. Okay. He calls it a sealed system in which concepts endlessly circulate, recognize, and endlessly interrogate each other. Okay. Now, that is what he says, that what we need today is the liberation of literature from the straight jackets of nationalism. Now, that is another very important thought that he is giving us. Okay. Because he was a nationalist. Somebody who is writing in a language, his own language, sure, he is against English, and he is a true nationalist. And this true nationalist being banned and exiled from his own country, and look at that. What is there? So, this is where we stand with Ngugi. Today, when he is no more, his legacy stands. And we are gathered here to pay tribute to him. Me, personally, on my part, and of course on the part of the Department of English, I would say, of the Gorakhpur University in Uttar Pradesh, I pay my sincerest tributes to this one of the biggest figures in post-colonial writing, okay, who actually lived the post-colonial reality, and from that is born his wisdom. His wisdom is not bookish. He lives through it, and the whole politics of language that we talk today, that has come from Ngugi. I mean, of course, it might have come from other writers. I'm not saying that, I'm excluding it. But then he is a major figure. And as long as post-colonial studies exist as a discipline, Ngugi shall not be forgotten. Okay. Long live the memory of Ngugi. Thank you, sir.
You are not audible. English, you are not audible. Good to speak. Uh, Mr. Nagannavar. Nagannavar?
Yes, yes, sir. Good evening.
Ha, good evening. Good evening. I think Sangesh has some problem.
Yeah.
You can
Mhm.
please.
Yes. Good evening, everyone present. Uh, Because this is a tribute to the great soul who has departed from us. Let me not be very formal and straight away come to my homage to Ngugi. And I thank Alok sir because probably he spoke most of what I wanted to speak, and that would be a repetition. For me, when Alok sir said that this language earns me bread and butter, I fully endorse that. And English language doesn't not only earns bread and butter for me, but it is this language which has allowed me to be with you on this day. Having said this, I want to put my very straight, dry ideas in 10 minutes. Ngugi passed away on 28th May at the age of 87. But just before that, few days back in the month of May itself, he was very critical of the whole country, Kenya, where he was saying that the people of Kenya learn English and doesn't want to speak their native Geguko language. And they are more happy if their children don't learn the native language. And he was saying that that is a slave mentality. And he was correct also when he said that people should learn all the languages, but first they should learn their native language. To this extent, I also endorse what Gogi said. I don't have any issues with that. But then Gogi at one point says that he was a literary migrant. He calls himself as a literary migrant. When he says that, again, he is talking of a language. And I compare Gogi roughly with Shakespearean character called Caliban. Caliban says, "You taught me language and I will use it to abuse you." So all third world countries or all the colonial countries probably had to learn English, and then they had to come back and say that my culture is better than the slave mentality. So Gugi and Thiong'o also did that. He first learned English, and like Professor Alokji mentioned, that the paradox was that he always talked about his native language, but he was always serving in English departments. He said that we should abolish English departments and introduce our native language departments in the country. But he could never come out of that colonized mentality. He was always under the impression or he was under the shadow of that colonial mentality. When I say this because we, the people of third world country or the marginalized, so-called marginalized countries or colonial countries, we cannot first world countries understand what we are, what is our culture, what are our traditions, unless and until we learn the native language. And means understanding what my studies are. I use that theory in understanding Dalits and Dalit literature of our country. So if you say that we have to do away with English departments from any country, say Kenya, say India, probably we will not be able to make the world realize where we stand and what are our cultures. English is the only media where we can take the culture and identity to the world platform. Without this language, we cannot take. Ngugi, when he went to Uganda for his studies, he said that I had to move out of my home to understand what my home is. Here we have to understand that we have to move out of our home, literally means we have to come out of our zone of language, culture. We have to first understand and we have to understand the culture of the world which we are all following. If we do that, and we can do that only in English, other than English, I don't think that the world today provides any platform. I am also very proud of my language, Kannada. I am also very proud of my culture. I am also very proud of my native things. But then, without learning English, First, I have to learn English, and then I have to deny that English alone is not a vehicle to make these things understand. Ngugi, all his life, learned, earned his bread and butter, and died in United States. But then the paradox, the dichotomy was he was always advocating about his own native language, his own native culture. My concern to this great man is that at one point he says that we start to kill a language to start the to kill the people's memory bank. Yes, he says he connects language, native language, to the memory bank of the native people. But this memory bank can be utilized, can be explained, can be explored only when we know the language which is used across the globe. If we don't understand what we have to do to the world, what we have to convey to the world, my native language may not support me. So, first, I have to learn English, then I have to unlearn it. Then I have to make it the world realize that this language is a language which enslaves us. So, with this very brief note, I pay my sincere tributes to Ngugi, who left us and who has left, and I don't hesitate to call him as an ambassador of his own culture, his own native language. But then, with all my reservations, I say that we have to learn the language of the world and then say that this is my world. I can come back to my world only when I know the world better. With these few words, I put a full stop to my tribute to Googie. Thank you, one and all.
Thank you, sir. Your words were really, they just moved us. You just highlighted the importance of the language and asked us to, you just brought back Gogiwa Thiong'o's ideas to us. Thank you so much, sir, for your time and your words. I now invite Professor Amit Kumar, sir, from IFLU, to share his ideas and experiences with Gogiwa Thiong'o.
Thank you very much, Sanmesh, and thank you, Professor Dono, for providing me with an opportunity to talk on Ngugi wa Thiong'o. There are a few things which I would like to share with regard to Ngugi wa Thiong'o. In the first place, for certain reasons, I strongly feel that he deserved a Nobel Prize. But as we all know, Nobel Prize is a kind of a political decision. Whenever my students ask me a question, do you know certain writers who you really think that they deserve Nobel Prize, but who have not been awarded with it? The first name that comes to my mind is Ngugi wa Thiong'o. I think he is perhaps the greatest of all the African writers we have had for two, three reasons. One, he was not just a writer, he was an activist as well. He was an intellectual activist in a certain way. He was under prison for a long duration of time. He was a victim of the dictatorship that was there in Kenya. And despite that, he came out with very interesting literary writings, which is really amazing. And at the same time, he also did not simply stick to a particular, he was always on the borderlines. His life journey has been on the borderlines in the sense between the native language and between English, between activism and between being a writer, between a Kenyan and between an American. You see that he has always lived in this kind of a liminal space which Baba has talked about. That kind of a representation is something which is very much visible in his writings as well. So another important aspect about Gogi is this particular notion that there is a canonical Gogi and there is also a non-canonical Gogi. Canonical Gogi is what we have all been looking at: grain of wheat, petals of blood, and yes, of course, the non-fictional writings. But at the same time, there are a few things which he has written which are non-canonical. For example, there is something called "Why I Don't Want to Get Married." Something like that. If I can translate it properly, I think that is what it says. Why I cannot get married, and it's a very interesting piece. It's a drama, and that is something which our students are not talking about, and our teachers are not talking about, and the pedagogy doesn't include it. However, I think it deserves to be in the part of our curriculum in a very big way. There's also another play which he has written, which reads something like this: that why do men have to always walk, stand upright and walk, something like that. That is also very interesting, and perhaps we have to include these things into our curriculum, which we have not been doing. We are stuck with the decolonizing mind most of the time in talking about it because it has, of course, a lot of repercussions to post-colonial thinking. Now, having said that, let me now just come to Ngugi's contribution. Ngugi, throughout his life, as Professor Alok Kumar rightly pointed out, he was against scholastic theoretism. He didn't like theory. He was against jargons. He was against kind of concepts that are created by the French theorists and the Germans and the kind of things that have happened in the continental situation. However, I do not know whether Ngugi was not theorizing. He was theorizing in a certain way. I will just give you certain examples. Now, I am fond of this particular book called Global Ethics. This is very interesting, written as Professor Alakumar mentioned it, published in 2012. Now, this is a very interesting book, and where he says that he doesn't want to be a theorist and he doesn't want to talk like those Westerners because he comes from a African situation. He's a Kenyan writer, and he has to use a language which is not the same as the European language, the French, the Germans, the English, the way they wrote. He doesn't want to use that. However, let us look at the way in which he's actually defining global ethics. And global ethics was vis-a-vis dialectics. And who proposed dialectics was Hegelian dialectics. Now that dia is now taken away, and then a global is inserted into it, and then he gives an explanation as to why he's actually trying to do that. He does mention Hegel there, but then he doesn't talk about Hegel in some detail. Then he goes and talks about what does global ethics mean. He says, like a globe, on the surface, every point is equally a center, though each is also equidistant from the internal center. Now, if this is not theory, what else is? That's so beautifully put, so beautifully juxtaposed, articulated in a language which is nothing short for theory. Like a globe on the surface, every point is equally a center. Every point on the globe is a center, according to him, though each is also equidistant from the internal center. He's playing with words just as the way it happens, and then the beautiful thing that's coming out, and then a new idea circulates. And not just about global ethics, he goes on to expand this idea, which is a very interesting contribution. I think just as Edward Said did something called secular reading, he talked about a globalectical reading. That is again a very interesting contribution, globalectical reading. Now, this is amazing. What is globalectical reading? Globalectical reading is a reading adopted by a decolonized mind. It is a self-critical mind that does not buy the assumptions of the West. It speaks against the prejudices of the West. It is a globalectic because globe is not simply Eurocentric. It is a globe. It is expansive. It is wider, vaster than Europe. So we need to inculcate something called globalectical reading. And for writers, he has this thing to say. He says writers should have something called what he terms as a globalectical imagination. Now he says there is a globalectical imagination which is really very important. And what does that mean? A kind of an imagination that mirrors transcultural gestures. Transcultural gestures. Now that is not confined to a particular culture, it is transcultural. And it is gestures, imitating and talking about gestures and trying to see how gestures are narrativized in the matter of representation. So he says his novel, he himself comments about his novel called Wizard of the Crow, and then talks about how this particular novel is an example of globalectical imagination. So he was giving this concept. He was theorizing. He is one of the most important global South theorists. He is not a global North theorist, but he's a global South. If you look for theorists from the global South, the South-South dialogue and things like that, Ngugi's name comes first. Another important thing that he was actually trying to say and theorize was his idea of this world literature from below. Now, he was against the Goethe's understanding of world literature and the way in which world literature is, is actually literature between the Occident and the Orient, kind of a conversation that happens between the Occident and the Orient. He proposed an alternative to this understanding. And he proposed something called world literature from below. Now, what is this world literature from below? He was actually trying to look at the racially oppressed literatures. He was talking about the subaltern consciousness. And what about a global literature of the subaltern consciousness? Is it possible in the first place? That's a question that he is actually asking. And he is actually trying to tell us that it is very much possible to have such a literature, and then we can probably go ahead and have it. And for that, a writer needs to have this globalectical imagination, and a reader needs to have something called a globalectical reading. So he was talking about these interesting things. And then, having given us all these concepts and goes on theorizing about it, then he comes and tells us that we should revolt against something called linguistic feudalism. Now, this is again Ngugi's concept. Linguistic feudalism. Now, what is linguistic feudalism? Linguistic feudalism basically refers to, according to Ngugi, linguistic feudalism basically refers to the manner in which certain languages of Europe have enjoyed supremacy over other languages. And in people in the post-colonial, so-called post-colonial countries, they just buy this argument that the French and the German, the Russian, the Spanish are much more superior to our own native languages. So this is linguistic feudalism, and he takes this concept of linguistic feudalism and develops the idea of aesthetic feudalism. So linguistic feudalism, aesthetic feudalism, these are certain very interesting concepts that Ngugi was trying to coin and conceptualize and circulate. For that reason, I have my second thoughts with regard to this particular idea whether Ngugi was actually, not theorizing. Yeah. Of course, having said all these things, he comes to a situation and he says that we should we should talk about something called a core theory. No, he uses the word core theory. I'm sorry about the sound, the background. I hope it's not disturbing. What is this core theory? The core theory basically refers to a theoretical jargon and unnecessary ornamentation. I was talking to Professor Donor in one of the committees that we were in recently, and then he talked to us about innocent criticism. Remember, he talked about something called innocent, something very similar. What Ngugi is proposing here is core theory. He would be happy with core theory. What is core theory? Core theory, we would say, is a kind of an innocent way of understanding the world without any kind of a contamination of artistic jargonisms which prevail everywhere. So he was against that, and then yet he was not out of it, and he was trying to bring in certain ideas and talk about it. So what is really very interesting about this great man is his entire life was a conflictual situation. If you look into his personal life as well, I'm sure some of you must have worked on Ngugi and you know the personal life of Ngugi better than me, who is kind of an outsider here. Ngugi was a kind of an anguished soul in a way. He had a lot of issues, and then there was a situation where his own his own children, they kind of disown him and then don't pay attention, though they are writers. So they have their own reasons for that, but then Ngugi never accepts them. So a lot of things which are actually happening with regard to Ngugi, a very important person the world saw, and a theorist and an artist of a certain kind in terms of the way in which he was writing, an activist, it's a dramatist, a non-fictional writer, of course, a great fiction writer. It is a pity to say that he is no more with us, but his legacy continues. Thank you very much.
I now request Dr. Partha Sarathi Mundal, Head Department of English, Manbhum Mahavidyalay, Purlia, West Bengal, to share his, to give tribute to the great author.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Danud, for inviting me for his kind invitation to me in this August occasion to remember a very renowned African writer, uh, Ngugi Watching Thiong'o, and my earlier speakers have already told so many things, theories, his position as a writer. So before I start into the writer proper, I would like to refer to a poem by Tagore, Africa. So in that poem, Tagore has very clearly stated the colonial exploitation. And at the end of the poem, Tagore actually has asked the people to stand before Africa and apologize. In Bengali, he has written, তারাও ওই মানহারা মানবীর দ্বারে বলো ক্ষমা করো. So if we translate it into English, it stands that you come and apologize before this woman Africa. So I think that if we just go deep into the texts of this African writer, Ngugi wa Thiong'o, he has done the same thing, actually, a sort of apology, because he's a post-colonial writer. At the same time, when the country was achieved, got freedom in 1963, after that he wrote many novels, and if we refer to Matigari, and if I go to some of the, if I quote some lines from there, they were now standing in open space. They had left the storied buildings behind them. In front of them was a scrapyard where cars of all makes were stuffed with pieces of cardboard, plastics, papers, sacking, clothes, almost everything. That is our village. These wrecks. Yes, they are our houses. This is the picture that justifies the social vision of the author. So, he presents a country of political decadence and insensitivity, a country where men who stick up the truth and justice are sent to psychiatric hospital for being mentally derailed, a country where reasonable people are formed madmen and hobbled into cell, and realities are termed delusions. This situation provoked Matigari to state, again I'm quoting from that particular novel, for I have seen that in our land today lies are decreed to be truth, and truth to be decreed to be lies. Theft and corruption have become the order of the day. So very centered. If we refer to French Revolution, Wordsworth wrote that it was to be. It was a very heaven to rise in this dawn. And again, when that cruelty and all these actually engulf that French Revolution, the romantic theater. So he's settled, and since he is no more, the way he inspired the people, the way he inspired through his writings, is a lesson to all of us, to the country who have the same experience. India was under the British rule, Kenya was under the British rule. So if we follow his legacy, if we follow his philosophy, the philosophy is to decolonize, is to make India great. And in this context, I refer to the present central government has taken national policy of education, that is to bring Indian philosophy, Indian past, Indian greatness of India in education. So that is an idol in the line of a writer like Ngugi. I mean to say that what was Ngugi's attempt? His attempt was that Kenya will be Kenya, taking British. That's why he took he left his name George. I think his first name was George, and from there he took Ngugi, that particular name in his own language. So taking decolonizing everything was his attempt. So I'm referring to this national policy of education is an attempt by the government of India to make India great in its own way. If today we follow this writer, follow his philosophy, the philosophy of what is our own land, what we have, what the greatness that we have in our land, if we take it as a mantra of development, I think it will be a befitting tribute to writer like Ngugi, who sacrificed their life, who actually spent all their life to make Africa great. And with all these words, I conclude my talk. Thank you very much.
Uh, I would like to request Dr. Abhinav Piyush, Deputy Director, Indian Council of Social Science Research, New Delhi, to share his experiences and his opinion with regard to Ngugi wa Thiong'o. Sir.
Thank you, Sanmesh ji. Warm good evening to everyone. Let me begin by giving my thanks to the organizers and Professor Basuraj ji in particular for bringing us all together on this forum where we represent different generations of students and researchers who have read African literature and Ngugi in particular in some capacity. And therefore, today we have gathered here to pay our tributes to him. Now, I have heard Professor Alok Kumarji, Professor Naganwarji, and Professor Amit sir, and Partha sir. And they have really given a wide account of Ngugi's literary career and his scholarly career. My entry point into Ngugi, like many of students and researchers from my generation, was obviously the text of Decolonizing the Mind. I think I do not claim to be a scholar of Ngugi. I have read him in the university syllabus from the prescribed readings. My research area was a bit different, but I still remember this is something which happened in the third year of my graduation in Delhi University. Because by the time I was doing my graduation, post-colonial writings were fairly established in the 2000s. And not only were they established, but in fact, probably for 10, 15 years, Indian researchers, faculty members, they had written their PhDs on African writings. For me, there was a special appeal in reading the post-colonial writings. I don't know what it was, but I guess this is where Ngugi himself probably gives us a vantage point, and that stayed with me for quite some time. And he spoke about, I read that he spoke about his own experience as an undergraduate student when he came across novelist George Lamming from Barbados. And he mentioned that while talking about the work of George Lamming, he said that this work, it gave an unforgettable picture of a peasant revolt in a white-dominated world. And he said that suddenly a novel could be made to speak to me with a compelling urgency, touch chords with me deep down. His world was not as strange to me as that of Fielding, Defoe, Smollett, Jane Austen, and George Eliot. And I think this is something which many of us who have gathered here, we have felt it on some level or the other. We have felt that kind of empathy, that kind of solace in reading post-colonial writings, where we stood in solidarity with the ideas that emerged from post-colonial reality. The, the entire idea of dealing with a history of colonization, this entire idea of dealing with a language which continues to shape, like Professor Alok Kumar said, the bread and the butter. It continues to not only just serve families, but it runs the entire machinery of governments today in the global south. And this language became the entry point, and it remains the entry point till today, through which Ngugi must be remembered, through which Ngugi must be studied. And I agree with Amit sir when he mentioned that we must move beyond decolonizing the mind. We have seen the wonderful tales that have come out from African writings. And I also agree that, we cannot fail to read Ngugi as a theorist. He must be read as one of these scholars on language, the way we utilize it today, not just in our personal spaces, but also in education, in uncovering the politics of writing, in studying the influence and the legacy of the writers. Now, when Professor Basurajji spoke to me, now, I really thought to myself, where should be my entry point? Because here we have these scholars of Ngugi and post-colonial writings who have dealt and taught this paper for quite some time. And which is where I thought that I could speak about my own generations. How do we deal with Ngugi as a scholar now that he's dead? How should we carry forward his legacy? And to me, the answer was very, very clear. It is in the reconciliation of language and literature. It is in the reconciliation of debates and tensions that exist when it comes to studying regionalism, when it comes to studying regional writings, when it comes to studying regional languages, the dialects, national languages, nationalism, national literatures, and in fact, the literatures of the world, the cosmopolitan that they represent, the globalized reality that they represent. Today, we cannot escape from the reality of English, the practicality of English, English in its globalized discourse. In fact, because I deal with research, we try to convince everyone how English gives an advantage to a lot of the post-colonial nations, the scholars and researchers from post-colonial nations, as compared to, let's say, the scholars who come from China, for example, or from Southeast Asia, for example. I'm not denying their colonized reality, but there is an undue advantage that we get. And obviously, we have paid a price for this kind of advantage, but then this is where, as my generation stands to contend with the reality, we must make a conscious cultural decision, and this cultural decision should be based on the conviction, the kind of conviction that Ngugi represented. This conviction of navigating the boundaries of regionalism, the regional writings, the national writings, or the globalized writings. Today, when Booker Prize is given to Banu Mustaq, now it is, in my opinion, a very fitting tribute to the writings of Ngugi. Ngugi himself, like Professor Amit sir said, Ngugi is one of the reasons why he was not recognized in any of these forum was simply because he made this shift from English to Gikuyu. This conscious shift that he made probably, which is where the Bookers did not come to him, the Nobels did not come to him. But when a Booker comes to Banu Mustaq, that is where today's researchers' role lies. That is where the role of today's students of Ngugi lies, to make sure that we reconcile these differences and we propose a way forward. I think this will be a fitting tribute to Ngugi as a scholar, as a philosopher. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Um, May I now invite Professor N.H. Kalur, Head Department of English, Karnataka University in Dharwad, to share his experience with the Kogi Thiong'o.
Good evening to everyone. Am I audible, sir, now? Am I
Sir,
audible?
you are audible, sir.
Okay, good evening to everyone.
You are audible. You are audible, not visible. Ah, yes, you are both audible and visible.
Okay. Uh, my friend, for having given me an opportunity to share some of my views on Ngugi wa Thiong'o. Already, the Professor Alok Kumarji has spoken about the position of Ngugi wa Thiong'o. Amit Kumar sir has drawn our attention to the that how he has contributed to post-colonial theory and the necessity to pay our attention to the some of the works which have not been explored much. And my friend Professor Vijay Nagarnavar has referred to or spoken about the controversy. So that has been initiated by this Ngugi wa Thiong'o. Parth Sarthi sir has also talked about the legacy that Ngugi wa Thiong'o has left behind, and Abhinav sir has spoken about the importance or the positions awards that he deserves. Ngugi wa Thiong'o deserves. So I would like to pay my tribute by sharing some of my views on Ngugi wa Thiong'o. Ngugi wa Thiong'o, so based on based on the reading of his works, so he strongly believes and he advocates and practices this rewriting of the history. And the main reason why he advocates and why he practiced this rewriting of the history, in one of the books, that is the Trial of Dedani Kimati, in the preface to that book, he is asking, so how long our children have to read the histories written by the Western scholars, whose deeds and histories our children have to read? So this is the very serious question he is asking, and that is why. So he felt that. So there is the necessity of rewriting the history from the colonizer perspective or from the native perspectives, and that is why. So when we go through his works, so somehow we get the feeling that so all of his writings are the attempts to rewrite the Kenyan history, or reclaiming the legacy, Kenyan legacy and tradition. And this is one thing we find in his works. The another the important proposition he makes here is that Ngugi wa Thiong'o wanted these the movements, and mainly that Mao movement, that is the national liberation movement. He wanted it to be, or he wanted to show that it was the national movement, people's movement. It was not. There were the efforts or the attempts by the colonizers and the Western scholars to limit that national liberation movement to some narrow limits, and they were saying that no, it was not. I mean, in that many people across the country did not involve in it. It was the a movement. Movement by just a few people or few reasons involved in it. It was the people's movement. And in that at one point of a time in the play, one through the character, through one of the he speaks. Uh, what he
Only- only audible clearly, sir.
Not audible.
Clearly.
He thought the movement would continue. So he thought. So that is why he said that. As long, I repeat the sentence, that is very interesting sentence, remark he makes in the play. As long as women give birth to children, Dedan Kimati cannot die or will not die. So this is how. So he wanted to show that. So it was the moment which wherein all the people involved, irrespective of age, irrespective of gender. So movement is not going to be alive with just one leader. So the people's movement will continue. So this is how. So he then he was in Ngugi wa Thiong'o. So he is a Marxist in his orient. Marxist ideology he is advocating through his works also. It is the same. Again in the same work and many works also. There once that interview or he's inquiring the soldiers who were captured, and he's just trying to know the background of these soldiers and how much they are paid, what is the incentive they are given, and after knowing the details from the soldiers, so finally he makes one statement in that everywhere it is the same. Everywhere it is the same. The poor men who are sent to die, poor men who are sent to die, so the parasites may live in paradise with all ill-gotten wealth. So this is
Ganesh, Undeevare, can you please unmute?
so whether it is the developed countries, third world countries, or whatever it may be. So in all the countries, so it is the poor people who are sent to fight for the the rich people. So that is why. So in this way, he is advocating this Marxist philosophy. And another the prevailing the aspect of his writings is the resistance. So it is found in almost all the works, and he is highly critical of this the emergence of neo-colonialism, because in that the same play that the trial of the Dedan Kimati. So there the a delegation of the politician and the businessman, the priest, and the Indian are going to persuade Dedan Kimathi to accept that he is guilty, but he does not accept. So he is not yielding to any kind of a pressure. There he is asking again one interesting question. So how many revolutions will unchain the minds of these people? So this is how. So he believes that. So the minds of these people are colonized. So the lot of revolutions are required to unchain the minds of these people. So that's why with a lot of anger he is shouting, "Unchain my hands, unchain my legs, unchain my soul." So this is how he is expressing his the anger, and this is how he is expressing his anger against even the neo-colonizers who are joining the hands with the colonizers, and that is the elite people, the native elite people who are continuing the tradition of the colonizers. So he is very unhappy with this emergence of elite which is joined or which is continuing the legacy of these colonizers. And through his writings, so he's trying to revolutionize the minds of the people, and that's why. So through that work, so or many all the speakers have referred to that work, that is the decolonizing the mind. So there is the necessity of what real mindset. So we have to be proud of our country. We have to be proud of our culture. So we should involve or engage in establishing the egalitarian aim of the writings. So with these few words, I pay my tribute to this departed soul. So once again, I thank Professor President for having given me this opportunity to share some of my views.
Uh, we have heard the views of the eminent scholars, and I would say this condolence meeting wouldn't have a proper ending without the words being delivered by our beloved teacher, my beloved teacher, Professor Basuraj P. Dono. I request Professor Basuraj P. Dono to share his experiences with Gogiva Thiong'o.
Dear viewers of Dharwad Katte, Sangmesh, am I audible?
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Dear viewers of Dharwad Katte, my fellow speakers, good evening to all of you. Dharwad Katte pays its tribute to Ngugi Thiong'o, a leading African writer of international repute. I'm glad that six scholars, and interestingly, all of them are professors of English from across India, have paid their tributes to Ngugi Thiong'o, a major writer, a major novelist, a major playwright, and also a critic. And they have tried in their short presentations to highlight the significance and importance of Ngugi as a novelist, as a playwright, and also as a thinker. So we do not, we don't hesitate to call him a great writer, a wonderful writer, and also a very seminal, first-rate thinker. And I don't want to repeat the ideas and the thoughts that my fellow speakers have already expressed. But let me make a couple of observations about the uniqueness and the greatness of this man, Ngugi Thiong'o. I have a lot of personal respect for Thiong'o. I have enjoyed reading his novels and plays, and I have also enjoyed teaching his novels to my students at St. Louis, Karnataka. And I regard and consider Ngugi Thiong'o as a model writer, as a model thinker to Indians. And this is where I think I can make some observations. I more or less I fully agree with his views, with Ngugi Thiong'o's views on the English language and on his views on abolishing the departments of English, maybe in Kenya, in Africa. He gave a call for the abolition of the departments of English. I don't do that, but I would say that it's very important, it is very essential, it is very important, it is very necessary to Indianize the departments of English in India. So, Dharwad Katte, with your consent, we can give this call to professors of English in India. Let us try to Indianize our syllabi, and let us try to teach Indian content in our departments. And we have started doing it, but we have not done enough. We have not done enough. And so this is the need of the hour. This is the need of the hour. And in this sense, Ngugi Thiong'o is a big role model to Indians. And let us try to understand the essence of what he said and the essence of what he advocated, especially with regard to English. We're all professors of English and we are earning our bread and butter out of English. I don't deny this. Does this mean that we should ignore our cultures, our languages, our histories, our traditions? No, not necessarily. And we are not teaching English to the students of England. We are teaching English literature to our own students. Why should we only teach Shakespeare? Why not Kalidas in the departments of English? So I have been personally inspired by Ngugi Thiong'o and his ideas. I have always been advocating for the Indianization of English departments in India. And yeah, English is not my language. I'm making use of English, and which is true, but English is not my language. And Kannada is my language, Telugu is my language, Tamil is my language. All Indian languages are my language, not English. But in India, we have reached a point where we are ready to accept English as our link language, not any one of Indian languages. I'm not saying that Hindi has to be accepted as a link language, and there is no wrong if we accept Hindi as a link language. And I wonder whether we are colonial or post-colonial. I wonder whether we are living in 1947 situation or 2025 situation. I don't know. So we have to come out of this this slavery, decolonizing the mind. In India, I don't think that we have started decolonizing our minds. Our minds have been fully colonized. We got political independence 75 years ago. We are politically liberated, maybe economically liberated, but we are not artistically, linguistically, culturally, liberated. Because we still worship the Europe, we still worship Europe, America, and we blindly follow Europe and America. They are the models to us. They are the biggest, finest models to us. And do we have our own intellectual? We have our intellectual ability, but we are not making use of it. We don't talk about. We are not able to develop some important theories. We have the resources. We have tradition. The English people do not have tradition at all. They have to go to Latin and America to get the tradition. We have very living tradition, 5,000 or older tradition we have. Why can't we learn? Why can't we, gather strength from our own tradition and develop our own theories? It's possible, but we are not doing it. We love English, which is not our language. It's not our script. It's not our script. It's not our language. It's not our life. So we can learn English because we have to communicate to the rest of the world. But what about our own culture? What about our own culture? And he said, Ngugi wa Thiong'o said, children in Africa have to learn African literature from first standard up to PG. And what are we doing in India, in Karnataka? We are forcing our children to learn English literature from day one, not from first standard, from day one. The moment the child begins to learn language, we want our children to learn only English, nothing else. Nothing else. And the child has to learn language throughout its formative period. And they never learn the mother tongues at all. And there are crores of children in India who do not know their own languages because they have not learned. So language is not just a means of communication. Language is not just words. Language is something more. There is life in it. There is life in it. My life is in my language. My culture is in my language. My soul is in my language. If I don't learn my language, I miss the whole thing. There is a debate now. There is a debate going on in Karnataka about the statement made by Kamal Hassan. I'm not audible?
Sir, you are audible, sir.
Yes. Kamal Hassan. And let's try to understand the feelings of the people of Karnataka, why they are opposed to the statement made by Mr. Kamal Hassan. So, but India is not like Europe. England is a country, small country. It has just one language, and there are no problems about national state language at all. But in India, we have so many languages, and all languages are national languages. We say. Then how to pick up one and call it a national language, linked language is our problem. And how to overcome this problem? We can't overcome this problem by using English as a linked language or a national, international language. So this is the context in which Ngugi becomes important. His views and his ideas also become very important. He says, to speak one's language is to celebrate one's identity. If I do not speak my language, I will not have my identity. We have multiple identities in India because Kannada is my identity and Karnataka is my identity, Bharat is also my identity. Okay. Similarly, all of us have dual identities, and sometimes this creates big problem for us. Whether Karnataka is more important or India is more important. So when it comes to nation, I always say that for me, Bharat is more important than my state. So this identity is directly linked to the language. And he also says, but to impose a language is a way to divide people. And he made this statement in the context of English. And in India, we are making this statement in the context of Hindi. I'm not saying that Hindi should be accepted as a link or national language. Let us accept Tamil, let us accept Kannada or Bengali or any other language. Let us have our own language. Let us use an Indian language as a link language, as a national language for which we are not ready because we want English to be used as a link language. So and he rejected imperial narratives and he claimed his own identity. And he was convinced by 1970, I think he was convinced that the English language was not a tool of was a tool of colonization, and that real decolonizing was impossible without decolonizing the mind. So I'm fully convinced that in India, we have not decolonized the mind. We are very, very colonial in our attitude and approach. We are very, very colonial in our thinking, in our intellectual debate, and in everything that we speak and do. That's why we hate our own culture. How do you establish your identity when you hate your own culture, when you hate your own civilization, your own history, and all that? Is it not colonial? So a writer like Gugiwa Thiong'o should inspire us uh, in understanding our own national problems and overcome this. And um, so I think uh, I should put an end to this, and I join Mr. Alok Kumar, who is like an elder brother to me, and my very good friend, my contemporary Professor Amit Kumar, and my classmates Vijay Nagannawar and Kallur, and Partha Sarthi is also like my younger brother, and Piyush is another younger brother of mine, and one of you have given your tributes to Ngugi wa Thiong'o and also made brilliant observations which will help us understand Ngugi wa Thiong'o better. And um, I have I have a very sad news to share with you. Today, this evening in Bangalore, 10 people, uh, declared dead in a stampede at RCB victory celebration in Bangalore. 10 people lost their lives, including a child. And I pray to God mm, you know, to give strength uh, to the families that have lost their young children, small children. And, may Nuhi Wati Ango soul rest in peace. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. At the outset, I would like to thank all the eminent scholars for having given you tribute, and I would say rather it was a real tribute that our beloved and very cherishable author would ever get from all of us. It was really a good you know it was the experiences that you have shared, the insights that you have shared will keep inspiring us. So can we have one or two audiences to share their experiences?
Yes, yes.
So I request the audience to share or to give their tribute to the legendary author. Any of the audience.
I think nobody is ready. Sangvesh, you can.
Yes, sir. Uh, may I now request Sumangla to give vote of thanks? Yes, yes, ma'am.
Sangvesh and Sumangala are my research scholars, and they are working as assistant professors of English in government degree colleges in Bagalkot. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, one and all.
Namaste. Namaste to all of you.
Namaste.
Before you just exit, I have an announcement. I have an announcement. Please, I request everyone to stay online. It's a on this occasion we would like to share with you that soon we are gonna start an online series on Bharat in Western and Indian English imagination, and we truly say that this would be really a venturous journey, and we request especially my teacher and Suma, and we especially we request all of you to be a part of it, and to the all the audience. So at the outside, let me say thanks to all of you for having given you time and energy and having been part of it, and I request all of you to be the part of all the upcoming, programs and sessions and series. Thank you. Thank you, one and all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.